Hello, mom friends. It's me again, Mimi. Welcome to another episode of voluntary sleep deprivation. Because my me time is more important than sleep. I haven't been posting lately because we're at it, the terrible twos. I guess there are things that I've realized after going through 2 hellish weeks of tantrums and just oppressive behaviors. Just I have been planning really of posting a totally different content, but the 2 weeks just gave me some sort of insight as to what I should really post about first. I want to post about the things that you'd never expect in raising a gifted kid. Nobody tells you this. It's hard because sometimes your mentors, your parents, or the ones that you turn to ask about raising your child, they won't be that reliable because your child is different. And I guess my kid has also been going through a lot of changes and difficulties with just growing the way she is and teething. She got a few mouth sores and, well, her general sensitivities. She's really sensitive sensory wise. I don't know about SPD. I can't really ask about SPD at this time because none of the resources I have been looking at are open. It's just a tough time with the pandemic and all. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes you realize things when you're in the thick of it, and I just want to share them with you. So let's get on with it. Just because your child may be gifted doesn't mean it's easier, right? Like, just because they're smart, just because they're really advanced, they learn how to talk early, they're very communicative, doesn't make motherhood any easier. It may just be even harder sometimes because they may be very vocal, or they can tell you what's going on, but they can't do exactly how you may prefer it to happen. What I mean is, it can be harder because gifted children really need a lot more resources with regard to finding out the schools or the curriculum that you wish to get. They have a lot of sensitivities, like I mentioned, SPD for example, and you have to find out a lot more about that subject and maybe find people you can turn to, like neuropsychologists. You have to find out who's the best one, maybe get them checked if really needed, just to be a good help for your parenting, I guess. And they can still be typical. Like, my daughter is 2 years old and she can be a typical 2-year-old. I mean, since they're really asynchronous, they can shift their I can't really say shift. It's more of they can act like a neurotypical child sometimes, and it's confusing because you're expecting behavior from a gifted kid that you've read about in all of the resources you find online, and sometimes they still act like a neurotypical kid. Like it's not consistent. Nothing is consistent, and sometimes some of the behaviors they do is neurotypical, and some of the other behaviors can be like, where the heck do they get these stuff? Where do they learn this? It's mind blowing. That's kind of an issue because sometimes you have to guess how you're going to approach a certain situation, and you have to look not only with all the resources that are given to you with gifted children, you also have to look at neurotypical development so that maybe they work, more than the ones that are presented in other resources, or maybe you can just can't find it in resources for gifted kids. It's a constant research juggle. You know your child more than anyone else. That's just it. You're the expert, and sometimes you just don't know what's going on. And sometimes that just gives me anxiety because, like, there are a lot of people who have done this before, and you have to rely on their research, and you have to research it for yourself. Like, nobody's just going to tell this to you, and your kid is one of a kind, so not all of the research is going to work for them, but you have to know it just in case that it works. And it takes a toll. It takes a toll. It's hard to get advice for it, especially if your child is like the first one that is very noticeably gifted. Like, who do you turn to? Like, if I'm not gifted, if in your family or in your husband's family is not gifted, none of you can turn to your parents or your grandparents for advice about this. Sure, their advice might work even if like it's for neurotypical kids, just for everyone. Maybe it's outdated. It's hard to like get the right kind of advice for your child because you're the expert. Yeah, and labels like for the other kids who have conditions like ADHD or SPD or any other abbreviation out there. You can turn to a lot of the research for those things, but of course your child is also your child. He or she is not their diagnosis or the classification or whatever that abbreviation might be, and you have to find out for yourself which ones to cherry pick and take as advice. And that's difficult. It's furthermore, there's so much reading material about gifted kids. It's really overwhelming. Like, how do you manage reading about all of that and retain the information when you're sleep deprived? You're doing a lot of things. You have a lot of responsibilities, and none of it may even help sometimes when you're in trouble already. Like, you can't just turn to page 62 of some random book about giftedness and find your answer, or it takes a bit of time to find out about things, and you're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna lose your temper, and you're gonna like do stuff you don't really want to do in the first place before arriving to the conclusion of what works and what doesn't. And just getting there is it's tough. Lastly, we forget their age sometimes because they're gifted, and it's common for a lot of parents of gifted kids to forget just how little they are sometimes. It's not like we're rushing. Sometimes we feel like we've been cheated out of um their babyhood or toddlerhood because they just act so much more mature than we are sometimes. But they're they're young, and sometimes um the common resources for raising a neurotypical child may have your answers. And yeah, from time to time, of course, it's not like it always works, but if it works, it works. And that way you sometimes remember also just how small they are at this time. And it's kind of refreshing, I guess, Yeah, you you're kind of reminded just how small they are and how little the time you're gonna be spending with them being that small. It's bittersweet. Yeah. I've been also going through this with my toddler. Like she's been being out of it lately. But she just like she came out of this just a day ago and it's so much better than it was before. But also it's like she grew up instantly. And I guess you kind of see it from the outside perspective and it's so cool just to watch them grow. She's been out of it for around 2 weeks because teething, some she had a few mouth sores, and her 2-year-old self is just rearing its head to new possibilities. So she's being very, very oppositional lately, and she just wants to do things her way. And guess where I found a lot of advice from? TikTok.